Well, the madness is over, as all 13 games have just finished tonight, and I forgot to mention this in the preview, but this is actually the first time in MLS history where there's that many games that happen in a single night. And obviously, I am not going to do a review for all 13 games tonight, because if I do that, I will probably be up to doing this video up till midnight, and I also have not been able to watch every single game out of this 13 game action. I mean, I kind of did told you guys back in the preview where there was a time during tonight's action where there was 9 games taking place at the same time, and there's just no way in the world I can keep up that many games playing at around the same time. But that being said, let us actually begin the madness by talking about the first game that kicked off of this 13 game action around MLS, and it was a rare midweek late afternoon kickoff between New England versus the Montreal Impact, and in the end, it was the Revs that gets their first victory at home by winning 3-1 against the Montreal Impact. Although, for the first half, it seemed like they were having the same issue that plagued them at home, and probably maybe the reason why they haven't won a home game until today. Now, in the first half, Diop was able to deny Rowe on the header, and I thought Clement Diop for the second game in a row really bailed out this Montreal Impact defense and kind of kept the scoreline a little bit respectable, because if it wasn't for Diop making some big save in this game, this could have been easily 4-5 or even 6-1 in favor of New England. Now, Turner did have to deny Bojan from about 20 yards out, but for the most part, New England were by far the better team in this game. And that I also want to quickly mention that there was definitely some hamstring problem for both teams, as a couple of players did have to be subbed off because of hamstring issue. And I guess the reason why both teams tend to have hamstring issue is because we're at a point of the season where since it's such a congested season and these guys have been playing pretty much almost every 3 days, you're going to have these situation where a player is going to have hamstring problem, and especially the fact that it seemed like the turf at Gillette Stadium wasn't very good in this game. That might be also played to another part of why there is hamstring issue, and that there's definitely going to be a lot more injury now from here to the rest of the season, and that it really felt like by the time we get into the postseason, or when we even get into the latter part of the postseason, this is really kind of a battle of nutrition in terms of most of these teams, and kind of almost a battle of who has the best depth in terms of all 26 of this MLS team, because we're going to see teams that unfortunately will suffer a back-breaking injury, mainly because of how many games that these players are asked to play, and there's just no way you're going to have an entire season without have to worry about a lot of injury when you play that many game on a short period for that long for the remaining of the season. Now, going back to this game, again, the Revs, they were by far the better team and had a lot of chances, but I think I kind of find out why they haven't been able to put away their chances, and the reason is they keep overplaying them whenever they get to the final third. And what that means is every time when they get to the final third, it seemed like either a couple of their players decided to be a little bit too cute and trying to go around the keeper and slots it into the empty net. I'm looking at you, Gustavo Bo. Or the fact that it just seems like these players just kind of panic whenever they get to the final third and kind of get a little bit hesitate whether they should shoot or just do the unselfish play to pass it to their teammate, and therefore you have just so many chances of the fact that the Revs were able to put away because they just kind of overplays it and allow the defense to recover in time, and by the time that is the case, the chances are already gone. But eventually they did get the opening goal, and it came 2 minutes into stoppage time, and really near the last kick of the first half, when Henry Kessler was able to score his first career MLS goal from the header to give New England a 1-0 lead, and that really broke the shackle in terms of the Revs offense, because they would fire on all cylinder in the second half, when Gustavo Bo also kind of freed his shackle in terms of not scoring goals for the past couple of games, when he of course scored in the 48th minute to give New England a 2-0 lead, before Fagundes scored from Buchanan after a wonderful team attack that led to a goal, and you just feel like at that point it was going to get a lot worse for the Montreal Impact because their defense was just getting completely cut open by this ref's attack. And they almost made it 4-0 in the 74th minute when Diop denied Panea as New England was really hungry to try to get the fourth goal. Montreal did eventually get a consolation in the 86th minute when Lapanani was able to score from Martial to at least keep this game a little bit respectable, but ultimately New England were by far the better team in this game, and they deserve all 3 points in this one. And even the stat sheet shows that, as they had 20 shots compared to just 7 that Montreal has, 7 shots on goal compared to 4 that the Impact has, 10 shots off target compared to 2 that the Impact has, 3 shots that was blocked compared to 1 that the Impact has, and possession-wise, 59% possession compared to 41% possession that the Montreal Impact has. And for Thierry Henry's team, yeah, he's got a lot of work in terms of trying to get this offense and defense figured out, because they have looked very bad in the last couple of games, and that if it wasn't for Clement Diop, as I said earlier, of making some good save, this could have been a very ugly game, and could be similar to when they took that 4-1 beating against Philadelphia in the last game. But moving on, in terms of the next match, is NYCFC versus Toronto, and this was a smash and grab victory for TFC, because for the most part, NYCFC had majority of the chances, and they're going to be kicking themselves of how in the world did they not score a goal, let alone actually picked up all 3 points in this game. Now, in the 10th minute, partially the reason why they weren't able to score a goal is because Alex Bono was on his game. He was able to tip over a Castellano header from about 15 yards out in the 10th minute. Before, another reason why NYCFC weren't able to score is because they missed some glorious chances. This was one of them where Mackay Stevens was open in the 12-yard box, but unfortunately he puts his shots wide. Then Bono robbed Keaton Parks, but he did allow a bit of a juicy rebound to Callens, who unfortunately weren't able to take his chances from the near post. Then Johnson did head to Rob Pozuelo, as that was really kind of the only chance that TFC had in the first half, and that they almost were against the run of plays if Sean Johnson did not make a good save. Before Bono would rob Alex Ring, who he thought for sure that he got the opening goal from point blank range, but fortunately Bono was there to make the big save, and NYCFC unfortunately will have to settle for a 0-0 draw, and that they have to be very frustrated the fact that how in the world they're not up 1-0 after 45 minutes. Now, heading into the second half, again, NYCFC had chances to score goals in this game, but they weren't able to put away chances. And this is where it gets to a point where, if you're Toronto, knowing the fact that yes, you haven't been playing at your best, would you maybe think about being a little bit risky and trying to go for it so that you can steal all 3 points in this game? Because I'm pretty sure that was on the mind of Greg Vanney, and that this team definitely started to attack a little bit. And it started in the 73rd minute when Johnson was able to rob Akinola on a rare Toronto chance. Well, at that point, I thought it was a rare Toronto chance because that was only like their second big chance of the night. Before, in the 82nd minute, Toronto was able to catch NYCFC completely off guard on the free kick, but unfortunately Gonzalez wasn't able to put away a free header. And then in the 85th minute, we had a bit of a scary instant where Aber was on the ground and was really just crying in pain because of a nasty knee injury. And let's just hope he, of course, is all right, because besides the fact that he's been snake bit this season in terms of scoring goals, the last thing you need is to see a player that is definitely crying in pain, and that definitely looked like a very serious knee injury that he, of course, suffers. So, if that is the case, I wish Aber a speedy recovery. But to add insult to injury, and no pun intended that is, TFC would get the opening goal, and it came in the 89th minute when NYCFC can see a penalty, and it was Acevedo, the one that handballed it. Now, I feel like that was a bit of a harsh handball call, because when that ball hit his hand, it definitely looked like his hand was in a natural position, and it was kind of tucked in. But either way, the referee felt like it was in a gray area where that that was given a penalty either way, which Pozuelo, unlike in a couple of weeks ago where he was just being way too cute on the penalty spot. And yes, I'm going to keep mentioning that instant because that is just an embarrassing moment for TFC, and that is kind of a moment you deserve to keep mentioning over and over again of how bad that failed penalty is. But this time, at least Pozuelo was smart enough where he's able to just shoot it from 12 yards out and puts it into the back of the net to give TFC a 1-0 lead up to that point, and they would hold on to get the 1-0 victory. As the shots in this game, 16 shots compared to 9 that Toronto has, 8 shots on goal compared to 3 that Toronto has, 5 shots off target compared to 4 that Toronto has, 3 shots out blocked compared to 2 that Toronto has, and possession-wise, 59% possession compared to 41% possession that Toronto has. And that, again, this feel like it was a smash and grab for TFC, knowing the fact that despite the fact that they weren't playing at their best, they got a goal very late in this game. And for NYCFC, again, they will be kicking themselves the fact that they didn't get 3 points in this game, despite the fact that they just had boatload of chances of potentially getting at least 1 goal coming into this. But moving on, in terms of the next match, is Atlanta getting a huge 1-0 win against FC Dallas, and this was probably the best Atlanta team we have seen in the past couple of weeks. And what's even more fascinating about this performance is that they didn't even have a designated player in this game, and I think this is only like the 3rd time in their club history where they did not have a designated player in the starting 11, and yet they looked like a team that was so much better than whatever they kind of put in the last couple of weeks. Now, in the first half, neither team really looked good in the final third, but eventually Atlanta started to control the game from the 20th minute mark, while Dallas was really trying to do a classic tactics that away team usually do, which is trying to sit back, absorb the pressure, and look to counter attack and look for opportunity. But Atlanta had a big chance in the 27th minute to score the opening goal, but Mara was able to rob Rooney to keep this one at 0-0 as we head to halftime at that score. Now, in the second half, Mara would again come up with a big save, this time denying Gallagher, but you kind of had a sense that Atlanta was potentially going to get that opening goal, and they were really knocking on the door on that point. And it finally came just 6 minutes later when Larenovic was able to score on the penalty spot. This penalty that Atlanta got was all because of Matt Hedges, where originally they didn't say that he, of course, handball in the box, but they go to VAR to see whether or not if that is the case, and indeed it was. And this one, I think it's definitely a handball with the way that his arm was kind of in an unnatural position during this time when the ball struck him, and that Atlanta was able to get a penalty, which Larenovic, who, it's not often you see a team that actually allowed their defender takes a penalty shot, but knowing the fact that Atlanta just have nobody on the striker department that can able to take penalty, whether they're on the IR list or they're no longer with this team anymore, it was really, they were kind of running out of the option and really had to go down the pecking order of the penalty ticker, which Larenovic was able to take this and able to slot it in to give Atlanta a 1-0 lead up to that point, and turns out to be the winning goal of this game. But Dallas did start to wake up around the 70th minute mark, and you kind of knew that Dallas was going to show some pushback off of Atlanta, and that Atlanta really need to start to cut the bunker down a little bit. Vieira had a chance to give them the equalizer in the 72nd minute, but he just hits that one high from about 8 yards out. Before Guzan would rob Savania from point blank range to keep this one at a 1-0 Atlanta lead. Maurer then had to deny Gallagher again in the 89th minute, and that Gallagher almost had a chance to pretty much seal this game up, but ultimately Atlanta was still able to hold on to get a massive 1-0 win against FC Dallas. And the shots in this game, 12 shots compared to 6 that Dallas had, 5 shots on goal compared to 1 that Dallas had, 2 shots off target compared to 3 that Dallas had, 5 shots that was blocked compared to 2 that Dallas had, and possession-wise, 48% possession compared to 52% possession. And, for Dallas, this is just kind of one of those games that pretty much every team's going to have to go through, where it was pretty clear that Luchi Gonzalez was playing a relatively weak weak squad. And even with a relatively weak squad, you can see that this team was definitely tired with the way how many games that they've been playing, and that when you have kind of a tired team like that, this is going to be a resort that you're going to see. And hence this is why for this season we're not going to see a lot of team that's going to have an impressive winning streak, because there's going to be at least one games where they probably will think that this might be the game we're just going to have to throw away, and so we can save up in terms of potentially winning the next one with a fresher squad. And I guess maybe that's what Luchi Gonzalez fought in this game, and that unfortunately he has to sacrifice 3 points in this one. But take nothing away from Atlanta, where this is definitely a good confident boost for this team in a time where they're definitely going through a transitional period, and they're started to make some signing, and already made a signing in Marcelino Moreno from Argentina, and from Linus as one of the DP players that potentially could replace Pity Martinez in that spot. But moving on, in terms of next match, speaking of teams throwing away games, and the fact that I said in this game between Columbus versus Minnesota, I thought this was going to be a throwaway game for the Loons, especially the fact that since Columbus, they're the best team in the league, and in this game, they pretty much show why they're the best team in the league, and they have the best home record in the league with pretty much winning all of their home game. I thought this was just a game where I feel like we might as well just throw away this game and take our chances in the next game at home against RSL. Now, Heath did start a squad that I thought he did put a couple of reserve player in the starting 11, but at the same time, he also put a couple of starters that play in the last game against Houston into this one, and I was kind of surprised by that, consider again, I feel like he might as well just do what he did against SKC, where he filled a weaker squad. Hope that maybe he can get away with that game with a point or not, and move on into the next game with a relatively stronger squad that is ready to get a victory. But that's not the case. That wasn't necessarily the case, as he kind of started a relatively decent squad. But despite that, Minnesota, they still look like they were doing the tactics that they did against SKC, which is just kind of sit back and hope that they can, of course, hit Columbus on the counter. And just like the SKC game, they were not successful in terms of doing that, as Columbus were allowed to have all the ball, and they just pretty much cut that Loons defense for the most part in this game into pieces, and they just could not launch any counter attack for the majority of the game. In fact, it took them 26 minutes until they actually got their first shot, and that first shot actually came from the new boy, Kai Kamara, who gets his first start and gets to get to play against his former team. I almost said reunite with his former team, even though technically he never played for Minnesota, and he's a former Columbus Crew player, but unfortunately he did not have a good game in this one, and I'm not going to fault him for not having a good game, because there was just no service whatsoever that he got in this one. And ultimately, with the way that Columbus was dominating this game, it was inevitable that Minnesota was going to concede, and it happened in the 30th minute when Zalarian was able to score from Pedro Santos to make it 1-0 in favor of Columbus. Then, right on the stroke of halftime, just as I thought that Minnesota might be able to get to halftime at 1-0, where maybe they can kind of talk about it and change things up to get to do a little bit better heading into the second half, Gasper basically brought down Diaz in the box, which is a penalty for Columbus, and Zalarian had a chance to make it 2-0 up until that point, but unfortunately he blazed it over the board, and I thought the Loons really got off the hook in terms of that. Like, we could have easily been 2-0, and that if that was at 2-0, it was pretty much game, set, and match. But there was definitely hope that maybe in the second half things are going to get better, right? No. Instead, Columbus basically left off where they had in the first half, which is just completely dominating this game. And that Dane Sinclair in the 58th minute did deny Santos on the free kick. And the reason why this game was 1-0 for a very long time was because Dane Sinclair was really standing on his head. And then in the 64th minute, Zalarian hits the post, and that Dane Sinclair actually dived for it. And as that ball bounced off the post, it came to Luis Diaz, which you would think for sure Diaz is going to score this one because Dane Sinclair already commit in terms of that shot from Zadarian. But somehow, in some way, he was able to get up very quickly to deny Diaz in terms of that shot. But unfortunately, he wasn't able to save the shot from Santos in the 69th minute. Again, it was inevitable that the second goal was going to come, and Santos with an incredible shot from close range. Well, not from close range, but more like from a tight angle, and just blast that one into the near side top corner. And he of course scored from Zadarian to give Columbus a 2-0 lead. And at that point I knew it was game, set, and match, and that there's no way that Minnesota was able to come back in this. Or do they? Because in the 88th minute, Robin Laird scored from Gaspard and Edwards to make it 2-1 at that point, and I thought, okay, yeah, they gotta go, but it seemed like it's a consolation goal, isn't it? Then in the 93rd minute, and this is where the controversy in this game, and this is where I think Loons fans will feel like they got robbed in this one, because Reynoso scored this goal in the 93rd minute, and I was definitely going crazy, but then I realized the offside flag was up, and that this goal, of course, was disallowed. Now, I'm not happy the fact that the offside flag was actually up right away when they saw Aha was in an offside position before Reynoso puts it in, because as we know, the new rule in MLS where if you have a close offside call or even a obvious offside call, the linesmen are always teach to put their flag down, because we can always look at later on VAR. But in this instant, the linesman immediately raised the flag, and that they did eventually kind of went to VAR to see whether or not if that is a goal that they feel like it was a clear and obvious mistake and it should have been given a goal for Minnesota. And I gotta say, I look at the replay 5 to 10 times so far, and I still feel like Aha was level with the last defender, and that if anything, maybe his left foot or his left arm was just a little bit past the last defender, or there's not a good angle to see it. But either way, I feel like that goal should have counted, and that Minnesota would have stole at least a point out of this game. But still, even with that call that kind of gone against them, Columbus clearly deserve all 3 points in this game, as the stats pretty much show that when they had 15 shots compared to just 8 that Minnesota has, 5 shots on goal compared to 2 that Minnesota has, 5 shots off target compared to 4 that Minnesota has, 5 shots that was blocked compared to 2 that the Loons had, and possession-wise, 57% possession compared to 43% possession. And despite the fact that the Loons were a little bit hard done in this game, just got to move on into the next one, because, as I said, since this game is a throwaway game for the Loons, and that the next game at home against RSL, which kind of seems like it's a little bit of a must-win for them, yeah, they better win that one so that they can, of course, get themselves back up the table, because this loss, as I said, as much as I know we're going to have one of these games where it feels like a throwaway game, it does kind of hurt our place in the standing, as this team have now dropped all the way down to 7th place in the Western Conference. While Columbus, they with this win, they actually are able to extend their lead in the Eastern Conference, because as I'll mention in part number 2 of the review, Philly did not able to get the result against FC Cincinnati. But moving on, in terms of the next match, is the Chicago Fire. Boy, oh boy, this Fire team were very angry coming into this game. And despite the fact that there were, once again, decisions that gone against them, and it seemed like bad luck was going to come back to haunt the Chicago Fire team, this was a game that they basically said that you can give us all the bad decision or all the call that goes against us, or have disallowed goal for us. We are not going to stop in this game, and we're not going to be denied of getting all 3 points in this one. Now, in the first half, and the first thing I want to mention is that there's football lines that actually overlap the soccer dimension, which in some way this kind of felt like a throwback Chicago Fire game, because when Chicago was playing at Soldier Field back in the early 2000s, this was a regular issue that the Fire had to do, which is football line overlapping the soccer dimension. Although I'm pretty sure the Soldier Field staff was trying their best to make it look look like that is not the case, but you can still see like kind of the faded kind of football dimension, and you can even obviously see the Chicago Bear logo right around the center circle during that play. Now, 2 minutes into this game, Marich was able to rob Baric from point blank range, but little did he know that he would be in for a night where the Chicago Fire is going to put on a shooting range in front of him, and that Baric was not going to be denied 12 minutes later, as he would score from Jonathan Bornstein to give the Fire a 1-0 lead. Before, it was 2-0 in favor of Chicago when Fabian Herbert scored from Aliseda to make it 2-0. Then it looked like the Fire had a chance to make it 3-0 when Figueroa handball in the box, and it was given a penalty for the Chicago Fire. Before they had a chance to take the penalty, they go to VAR to see whether or not if it was actually a handball on Figueroa, and they said it was not, and it was overruled, and that they didn't get the penalty. And I thought that was the wrong decision, because you can clearly see that Figueroa, when that ball hit, he basically brought that ball down with his knee, and then it pops up into his hand. That hand was as outstretched as possible, and even the Fire broadcast said that there's no way in the world this was going to be overturned, and I agree with them. I am shocked the fact that they overturned that call, and that it feels like, here we go again. This is kind of a typical Chicago Fire game where they're just getting screwed by the referee. But again, like I said, this team is angry, and they're not going to let any bad decision that goes against them going to stop them from scoring goals, because in the 40th minute, Alvaro Madron did his best Lionel Messi impression by just ticking on the entire Dynamo back line and made a 60-yard effort that finished with a goal. And not only the fact that this is going to be on the goal of the week contention, and that was a spectacular solo effort, but this is one that I think Tab Ramos would really want to throw his projector or his film after watching this into the wall, because this is textbook example of shocking defending in MLS. I mean, I swear there was a couple of times where there was some Dynamo defender just literally watch him goes by. Like, they didn't even think about trying to challenge him during that point, and just kind of let him be on his way and trying to score a goal for them, and that is exactly what he did. Now, they almost made it 4-0 just 1 minute later when Mihailovic almost joined the goal-scoring party. But, again, the Chicago Fire, as it has been for the past couple of weeks, had to have a goal disallowed for offside. And this was on the development of the play where, fortunately, one of their players was caught in an offside position. And at halftime, it was a 3-0 lead in favor of the Chicago Fire. But at least, even as though that there was a lot decision that goes against them. Remember, this is a Fire team that they are hungry to try to get the fourth goal, and that the Dynamo looked like they just gave up in this game. Now, they did try to get a consolation in the 70th minute, but Manotas unfortunately hits the post. Then, in the 88th minute, they would get that fourth goal as Sapon was able to convert a penalty, and this penalty was because of Struna brought down Sapon in the box. Now, when I look on the replay, it definitely looked like Struna actually brought down Sapon outside the box. But, you know, knowing the fact that the Chicago Fire has had so many bad calls that goes against them, you just feel kind of sorry for them, and that you feel it's only fair that they finally get a call that go in favor of them. And that I feel like if any team deserved a call that goes in favor of them, even though it necessarily isn't the right call, this was the one that I think the Fire deserve it, and that they took full advantage of that to make it 4-0 in that game, and that would be the final score of this game. As the shots in this one, 16 shots compared to 7 that Houston had, 9 shots on goal compared to 1 that the Dynamo has, 5 shots off target compared to 4 that the Dynamo has. Both teams had 2 shots that was blocked, and possession-wise, 54% possession compared to 46% possession that the Houston Dynamo has. And for the Dynamo, they just ran into a team that is just super angry coming into this game, and that I think for Tab Ramos, he's also is going to be a little bit concerned about this defense in these last couple of games, because this defense in these last couple of games have just not been good enough, and hence that's why they kind of started to struggle a little bit after they kind of got off to that hot run in phase 1 of the MLS's schedule. But moving on into the last game of this review, for part number 1. And I decided to switch the game for the last game that I'm going to be review. So originally I was going to review FC Cincinnati versus the Philadelphia Union, but as I said before, that game ended with the Union drawing 0-0 to FC Cincinnati, and it turns out to be a very boring game. I decided that I have to talk about this one instead because I don't want to finish a review on a very boring note. So instead, I'm going to talk about Sporting KC versus Orlando City, which was the national televised game. And in the end, Orlando City, they sent a message in this game where they're definitely for real and that this definitely looked like a team that not only can make the playoffs, but they could really compete in the Eastern Conference by getting a 2-1 win against Sporting KC. And for Sporting KC, this was a classic game where they just could not put the ball into the back of the net despite so many chances that they had in this game. And you could kind of say that this is a game that Orlando City had problem last year and that they kind of did an Orlando City in this one. Now, in the 9th minute in the first half, Zuzi had a chance to potentially get the opening goal for SKC from the free kick, but unfortunately it went wide. Despite the fact that Sporting KC looked better side early on, it was Orlando City that scored the opening goal, and it came in the 36th minute when Akindele were able to score from Kuan. Then they scored another one just 2 minutes later when Benji Michel scored from Nani. This was a shocking mistake on the defensive end from Sporting KC, mainly because they were trying to play the offside trap on Benji Michel, and they got it completely wrong. And when you get a offside trap completely wrong, this is what exactly going to happen, where Michel just kind of go one-on-one with the keeper and show his composure to slots it past Melia to give Orlando City a 2-0 lead, and turns out to be the winning goal in this game. Now, in the second half, Johnny Russo did get one back for SKC from Jerso. Again, Sporting KC were piling the pressure, but just no finishing product is the reason why this game remained at 2-1 up until that point. And one of the example of the fact that they had no finishing product is that Kinda did hit a long effort that didn't miss by much, but unfortunately it was just wide off the mark. Then they thought that they did eventually got that equalizer in the 75th minute when Polito basically came back into this SKC squad as a substitute a couple of minutes ago, and he almost made an instant impact and kind of just show how they dearly missed him all this time that he was suffering that knee injury when he was able to score the goal. But the only problem is Kyrie Shelton was in an offside position on the attacking sequence, and therefore that goal, of course, we're not going to count, and it remains 2-1 in favor of Orlando City. Then Galetse made an incredible save to Jerso to keep this one at 2-1 in the 86th minute, but ultimately that was the last chance that Sporting KC would get in this game, as Orlando City was able to lock down and hold on to get a huge 3 points on the road. And the shots in this game, 16 shots compared to 8 that Orlando City has, 2 shots on goal compared to 3 that Orlando City has, 10 shots off target compared to 3 that Orlando City has, 4 shots that was blocked compared to 2 that Orlando City has, and possession-wise, 57% possession compared to 43% possession. And again, this was just one of those games where the team that is more clinical, that is able to get the win, and that Sporting KC just did a classic Orlando in this game, and that despite the fact that they had a lot of chances in this game to put the ball into the back of the net, they weren't able to do so, and hence, with this loss, they are now really showing the effect of slipping down the Western Conference right now, and that they need to really get it together in these next couple of games. But there you have it. That is pretty much it for the review of tonight's action. Tomorrow, of course, I will look at the last 7 games that happened tonight, and I, of course, will immediately go and watch a couple of the games that I missed from tonight's action. But let me know in the comments below, what do you think of all 6 of these games? And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.